All right, we are back for our next episode of Machine Success. And I don't know if you've ever met a duo that complement each other so well, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. But I originally had the pleasure of meeting Shonali and Tiernan back at IMTS in 2018. I was impressed, bewildered, and inspired by them both. And then our paths crossed again, working on a project for the American Precision Museum to help inspire and engage youth and spark a moment of awe as they create awareness of the ability to do, be, and most importantly, see themselves in careers in manufacturing and education.
And Shonali and Tiernan, they're both former industry engineers that have been working together on SparkShop since 2017. They were motivated to enter STEM education world after experiencing the lack of diversity in the manufacturing world firsthand. And Shonali and Tiernan have worn every hat at SparkShop, from program development to fundraising to volunteer coordination to program instructors. They are thrilled to be leading a highly skilled team and are visioning about the future of STEM education in Chicago. Antonia and I are just thrilled to have you guys here, and thanks for kind of pulling us into your orbit. So thank you guys.
Thank you both.
Perfect. We're so excited for this interview. And I mean, ever since we saw each other in Vermont, it's like, we have to get them for the podcast. So tell us a little bit about the connection that you see with STEM and confidence.
Sure, I'll take that one. So there's a bunch of research that backs up the fact that young girls and young students of color are lacking that STEM confidence that gets them through those gates into STEM experiences and really keeps them there. And that's something that really resonates with me. So when I grew up in Washington, D.C., went through the public schools there that were like, fine. It was very easy to be a great student there. And I went to Northwestern to study engineering, and that was such a reality check on how many people in the world were better than me at math and science. And people are so quick to say, maybe you shouldn't be an engineer. And so my confidence took a huge hit. And the thing that got me empowered and back in and through the program that I graduated from was picking up manufacturing. So I joined our school's formula car team. I didn't know anything about cars, so they taught me how to weld because nobody really knew how to weld on the team. And that became a thing that like I knew how to do. And I had this whole finished product to show for it. And it just felt very like cool and empowering. And the confidence just came back. Classes got easier. And that was what really carried me through. And that sort of thinking has really informed a lot of our educational philosophy together and how we build confidence.
That's great. And so as a father of two girls, it's shocking to hear about the STEM cliff. Can you really tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the STEM cliff is this decrease in STEM engagement that we see statistically happen in girls starting around middle school. And that like STEM cliff kind of like up until middle school through elementary school, girls and boys tend to report similar levels of confidence in math and science classes and in math and science subjects. They perform similarly academically. Like the whole idea that girls and boys perform differently in science is just not backed up by the data. Up until about middle school, when girls' performance tends to stay pretty high and they start reporting much lower confidence. And so when we kind of extrapolate that all the way up through girls in middle school, in high school, in college, and in their careers, that's hypothesized to be the big cause for why there aren't very many women entering the STEM fields and pursuing STEM careers. So they're performing just as well as their male peers, but they are not feeling as confident or as capable in those topics.
We see it firsthand with our kids too. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy that this is really happening daily, and it's hard to really capture that. Why did you choose to focus your work in the greater Chicago area?
Sure. I mean, if you had asked us 5 years ago, the answer was just that we lived in Chicago and this is where we got started. But the deeper we get into the ecosystem here, it is the perfect city for the work we're doing. There are at least 600 elementary schools. There are so many children here. And then there are so many opportunities for them as they get older. We have world-class universities, trade schools, companies that are headquartered here, factories that are driving distance from the city. Really every kind of STEM job is here in our city and underfilled when we look at those roles and careers. So we really want to connect this massive pool of untapped potential in our youth to the opportunities in growing our city.
And what do you think we can do from an industrial side, to really inspire the younger generation to kind of stay connected to this STEM pathway as they move through the system?
Yeah, we have been thinking about this a lot. This is like the whole kind of question of how we how we connect education and industry. And part of our hypothesis and our theory of change is that um, companies could benefit by expanding their opinion or their viewpoint of like what it means to recruit. A lot of recruiting programs are focused at college students or students in trade schools, and we've seen, a great shift towards looking at high school students, but even those trade programs for high school students are underfilled and not like populated as much as they could be. And so what we think could really help is if companies look all the way down to elementary school to early childhood and look at the pipeline from the start as opposed to looking at toward the kind of the end of the pipeline. And then the other thing there is to just demystify the fields, right? Lots of times we talk about the technical fields as really complicated and really math heavy and really boring or obscure. I remember thinking, I had a family friend who sold bearings as a job, and I remember thinking like, that's the most boring thing I've ever heard, until I got to the engineering, like into engineering and manufacturing, and I learned a lot about bearings and how many different kinds there are and what they can do. And anyway, I really do think by demystifying those concepts for kids when they're young and letting them play and letting them ask questions, and encouraging those curiosities, I think we could do a lot to cultivate the curiosity all through that pipeline up to industry.
Perfect. And I'm realizing now we should probably like take a step back and talk about back in 2018 when I met you. And you were like, oh yeah, we like take 3D printers and desktop mills and we go into classrooms and we connect STEM education with manufacturing and engineering. And I was like, wait, you're doing what? And then COVID happened. And you had kind of run through my mind of like, I wonder what SparkShop is doing now that you physically can't get into schools. And you did a big pivot and a big shift, which I think is hard for larger organizations to sometimes do. You're really nimble and you really do work on the fly. So we're back in classrooms, right? We're getting back with students. We're working on the SparkShop kits that we have going through the American Precision Museum on really kind of linking and creating these moments. What is the most memorable moment, like that I would like each of you to even share this, that you've experienced in a classroom where all of a sudden like the student kind of gets it and the light illuminates, right? You see the face change and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So for me, I sort of go back to the early days when Tiernan and I were still kind of guessing at what kids might like and enjoy, and we came in without really formal education training. And we'd been working with a group of students at a school on a program that we called Materials and Manufacturing, with the goal of just showing them, people are taking raw materials, turning them into something useful, shaping them into the things around us, combining them together. It's that simple. But we got into examples and we did, scavenger hunts and we watched videos and we showed them the machines we brought in. And there was a day that we got to the school and outside the door of the classroom, there was this broken chair, right? Like a normal thing you would find in a school. And we drag it in and we wanted to play like a detective game with the kids of like, what broke? How did it break? And when we asked how did it break, they told us which kid was sitting in it when it broke and like laughed at them again. It's like, well, no, but like how, like, why did it break? And then they came over and they looked at it. And was it the plastic that cracked, or was it a weld that failed, or did the metal bend, or was a fastener, the head of fastener popped out? And I think what that locked in for us was also like not always sticking to the script, because everything is a learning moment. And what we're trying to build is like curiosity and awareness that like people made these, right? And even when people make mistakes, like we can dig in and figure out what happened, what went wrong, rather than just it's broken, put it in the trash. And we want them to sort of go about their days looking for stuff like that. Why is this way? Why didn't this work? What's the weak part of this design? And that felt really cool to be able to do with them.
One of the early moments that locked things in for me about the fact that learning engineering and manufacturing in schools makes this little shift in a kid's life that follows them through their life was actually a story a teacher told us. So this wasn't even something that I saw happen with the students, but we were following up with this teacher and she told us, oh, it's really amazing. We taught this materials and manufacturing class. The kids were learning all about different raw materials and what things are made of and how to put things together and make combinations of materials to make something new. And she told us that two of her students had decided they were going to start a dog walking business. And in their plan for how they were going to build a dog walking business is they made a bill of materials for all the things they were going to need. They wrote down they need paper, they need markers to make the posters, they need tape to hang them up, they're going to need leashes, they're going to need treats. And I felt like this was this beautiful combination of the technical content that we had taught the students, combining with this very natural childlike thing where like, I want to earn money. I love dogs. I want to start a dog walking business. Like this will be a fun thing for me and my friend. And it was this really special moment to realize like, oh, this stuff that we're teaching them right now, I might never see these kids again. They're going to go off into 6th, 7th, 8th grade, high school, college. The way they think about the world and the way that they move through the world is always going to be different because of this little couple hours that we got to shape their education. So that felt really special.
I love it. Such a huge impact. Such a huge impact to just see the world around you as something that's made instead of something that's just purchased.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we heard a little bit about your start, and obviously you guys have seen some growth over the last few years. What does the future look like for you? Where do you see yourselves going?
Yeah, so all over. Now we've got a model that really works, right? We've got curriculum that we're sending to Chicago schools. We're giving kids the school supplies they need to pack or to do the hands-on engineering and prototyping in their classrooms. We want to take that to as many Chicago schools as we can, especially schools serving marginalized students, because the STEM confidence cliff and all of these other factors compound with race and class, not just issues of gender. So we want to be serving students in Chicago, motivating them into these other opportunities. But we also have this theory of change and these best practices that we've been developing over the last 5 years, and we are working to share those with other values-aligned organizations. So we think it's really important that we're not doing this work alone, that there are other we know there are, hundreds, thousands of other organizations that are looking to make the same change in their cities as we are in ours. And so we are developing partnerships and trying to figure out what a really close, collaborative, I'm losing my thread, but just like what a close and collaborative partnership looks like, that allows us all to work in the same direction.
And one question that we didn't ask, and Clint, I'm butting in just now because I'm thinking about, why are you so focused in the 4th and 5th grade market with your education initiatives and programming that you're doing?
Yeah, so that really has to do partly with that STEM cliff, right? We want the confidence high before they go into those years that really wear on your confidence. And also in our research, we found that 4th and 5th grade is when students really start to form their identity and sense of self around their academic strengths. So that's where you start hearing, I'm a science kid, I'm not a math kid, I hate to read. All of those things lock in. And we want them to have that moment of like, I've already been an engineer. I've already invented something. I know how stuff is made. So like well before that really sets in as a closed door.
Yeah. So that clip alone right there, we should cut that and then try to share that to as many thousands of CTE schools and STEM schools across the country, because I think that's just so important and something that's being critically missed. And that's really good stuff right there. So that kind of does for our main set of questions that we had for you guys. And we do want to hit you with a little bit of rapid fire questions. So you can each kind of take an answer if you want. And I'll start off with the first one here. So if you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, whose would they be?
Toto Wolff, team principal of the Mercedes Formula One team.
Oh, I love it. What about you, Shonali?
That is such a good answer. You know what? I'm there with Tiernan too. I was still thinking and I was struggling with it, and like it would be amazing to run a Formula One team for a day, and probably for only a day. It seems extremely stressful. One day is perfect.
So now our next one, I've already told Clint what I think your answer is going to be for this, but what is the best sport to watch live?
Formula One.
I do it. I mean, I literally called it. I put it right in here in asterisks with an exclamation point. Their answer will be F1 for this.
It is. My other answer is hockey. Hockey's a fun one.
I love that one.
So before you, dreamed of engineering, what was the first career you dreamed of as a kid?
I wanted to be a lawyer, which feels So lame. But I was such a nerd and I loved it. I thought that would be really fun.
Fair. My answer was paleontology. I loved dinosaurs when I was little, and there was an Arthur episode where they met a paleontologist. So that was my first career aspiration.
Now, looking at your careers, and you've both accomplished so much in it, what are you most proud of professionally?
The answer for me has always just been SparkShop as a whole, but that's also so much of my career. I think if I get more specific than that, it's the change we made in the pandemic. The fact that we were able to sort of, even though it really hurt at the time, like throw away our old program that was amazing and worked, but required us to be in person and just start from scratch again and make something new. And the fact that it has been like bigger, better, adopted by even more schools has just made that feel so good that we made it like through the pandemic and grew.
I like that. Something I've always really enjoyed is creating teams and building up teams of people around me. I loved this on the Formula student team. I loved being in the position of adding resources and taking away barriers from the 50 other students that I was working with to build this car. And that's why I went into technical project management for my career. And for a long time, it was me and Shonali building up the confidence of these teachers. That has always been something I'm proud of. And as we build out our company, I'm really proud of kind of creating jobs and letting other people live out their values through working for SparkShop. So that's something I'm very proud of.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, Clint, I mean, you, myself, Greg Jones, we sit in rooms and we're like, oh my gosh, they are so intelligent. You are both so bright and
amazing.
Just the way that you see the world and the way that you can design content and curriculum to make it so engaging for 4th and 5th graders is unmatched in our industry. And it's why we're both kind of, again, bewildered to be in your orbits of what you're doing and to see what you do with SparkShop. So if there's anything that we can do to engage more companies and sponsors and look at getting more kids in the greater Chicago area, what should people that are watching this do to connect with you and make that happen?
Yeah, our website is www.sparkshop.org. There are ways to contact us through there. We are so open to finding new people who want to support students in Chicago. And we're also really open, like Tiernan mentioned, to finding organizations that feel like their community needs a SparkShop and they're willing to help make that happen and align with us, much like we did with the American Precision Museum and the two of you. We can assist. We can make that work.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for your time today. I'm excited for this to hit. Clint, I think this is going to take off on LinkedIn. I think this will probably be our top viewed because I don't know. It's like a force to be reckoned with the dynamic duo. One of my colleagues said, oh, I thought Shonali Tiernan was a person because you talk about them as a collective. I'm like, well, yeah, they kind of are. They're so amazing, but they're a dynamic duo. I was like, no, they're two separate people, but they are SparkShop. So you are the backbone and the heartbeat. And we're so happy to get the chance to work with you and interview you and share what you're doing.
Yeah, so many people need to hear your message, and please, please, please keep up all the amazing work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're honored to be here. Thank you.